I've just survived my first ever ultra bikepacking race, my longest bike ride ever, and while I definitely suffered quite a bit, I really enjoyed it, and I wish I'd done it sooner. So here are some lessons I learned and mistakes I made that hopefully, if I do it again, which is likely right now, that I would hopefully avoid. And if you are thinking about doing an ultra bikepacking race, and there are many on the calendar around the world right now, I say give it a go. Yes, the distance can seem impossible, but break it down to small chunks and you'll have the best experience, the best adventure of your life. Badlands for me was one of the best things I've ever done and something I remember for the rest of my life. A unique experience, the highs, the lows, the people I met, the course, the route, just a fantastic time. So here are some things I learned and mistakes hopefully I'd avoid if I do it again. Number one for me is fun. Not type 2 fun, where you enjoy it after the race, but actually fun during the race. And even before the race started, I met some really nice people. Similar people to myself doing their first ever ultra bikepacking race and just a bundle of nerves about the expectation and anticipation around the event. And it felt more inclusive and more friendly and more accessible than other forms of bike racing. And that definitely made it a more enjoyable, fun experience. And then the race itself, the first day was one of the best days I've ever had on a bike. I rode all day through deserts and mountains and into the night, and I was feeling fantastic and was really enjoying riding a bike. And it's a lot of fun riding a bike a long way and further than you ever had before. You realise how far you can travel on a bicycle and the landscapes you travel through and the speed at which you travel through a landscape. It's just a perfect speed for really appreciating your surroundings and the landscape you're in. And despite the crazy Mission Impossible distance of Badlands and other ultra bikepacking events, I think it's crazily accessible to a wide majority of people with a reasonable base level of fitness and good mechanical understanding of how the bike works. You do need to be self-sufficient and use your initiative when things go a bit sideways, perhaps with your body or bike. But compared to other forms of bike racing where it doesn't seem very inclusive or very welcoming to people who aren't at a certain level, my experience at Badlands is there were people going super fast, but lots of people like myself doing their first ever bikepacking ultra race, and we're just a bundle of nerves like I was, and we definitely bonded over that sort of shared experience doing the first bikepacking race. So yeah, definitely fun. Not type 2 fun, fun before and during. A few weeks later, definitely a fun experience to have been part of. The other important lesson with any ultra bikepacking event, and it goes without saying really, is the preparation for the event. Because doing 800 kilometers is no walk in the park, and you have to be super prepared, your physical fitness, your mental fortitude, and your bike setup. So while I'm saying it's accessible, you do need to do a lot of setup and preparation for the event. So lots of training, lots of long rides to build up that fitness and stamina and endurance you definitely need. And make sure your bike setup is going to be reliable and won't let you down during that race. So everything needs to be examined and analysed and make sure it won't let you down. So you definitely need to work up to the event, and I ride a bike a lot, as you may know. I've done quite a few bikepacking multi-day trips over the years, which, while definitely smaller in scope than Badlands, were good preparation for that need to be self-sufficient and carry everything on a bike you might need, whether it's sleeping equipment, food, extra clothing. So I would say don't go in at a deep end to Badlands or Silk Road race. Get used to riding your bike all day and maybe through a night, and then work up to it in that way. It would definitely be my advice. And while that need to be self-sufficient is tough and definitely needs experience to get good at being self-sufficient on the bike when riding a long way, is amazingly liberating. Just you, your bike, your luggage, just you riding a long way, free from all the stresses and challenges around the world that we live in, and just boils everything down to the simple fact of riding a bike a long way. And I enjoyed that simplicity. I definitely analysed my equipment setup loads in the weeks and months leading up to the event, and everything happened at the last minute with the bike build. And mostly my equipment setup was pretty on point, and I was very happy with my decisions I made. I'd watched loads of videos and read loads of reports on the race and spoken to people like Chris Hall and Aidan Duff about how I set my bike up and what equipment to use, so I felt in a good place and I was very happy with my setup. But there were a few things I would change if I was doing it again. So the biggest thing that really let me down was my computer. I used a Wahoo Roam version 3, which is a good bit of kit for navigation with a nice size screen, but the battery ran out after 20 hours, which is quite impressive. And my battery bank I had in my top tube bag for charging this when it nearly ran flat failed on me, maybe due to heat or it's faulty or something else. So this went dead after 20 hours. And without this, I had no navigation. So I had to use my smartphone and use a commute app to follow the route for the remainder of the race. And that made navigation a bit slow. With my phone in my pocket, I keep checking the app on the smartphone to make sure I'm following the route. So with hindsight, I wouldn't have used a Wahoo Roam. I would have used this, the Chorus Jura. 20 hours, 120 hours. And this would have had a runtime for my entire race with no batteries to charge. It took me 62 hours to do Badlands, and that's half the runtime of this. And that would have avoided the whole situation with my navigation woes. So I'm kicking myself now for not using this, and I did and R about using it. And I actually rode with a guy on the first day who had a Chorus, and I was, now in hindsight, really envious of his choice. And probably the main equipment choice, if I go back in time and change it, I would. Because you're riding a long way and there are lots of decisions to make, and worrying about your batteries on your bike, your phone, your computer, your lights, they're all stress points. They're all anxiety triggers. So removing as many of those stress points as possible with a long running computer would have made life a bit easier. One less thing to worry about, and it would have lasted the whole ride, and I have my activity on Strava by now. So when I next do, if I do another bikepacking ultra race, I'll use this. The other thing I learned from Badlands is that fueling is everything. It's essentially a race of eating and drinking and keeping your salt levels high. We rode through extremes of desert heat up to 46 degrees and then down to a chilly 10 degrees at night over loads of climbing, loads of terrain, rough road sections, and you had to eat and drink. And for me, that's my biggest concern. My stomach can be a bit delicate to stuffing loads of food in, but I got it perfect this time. A combination of sort of rice bars, some energy chews and some gels and some real food from supermarkets and bars. So ice cream for me, Pringles, cans of Coke, kept me well fueled. And the other lesson that was definitely drummed into me by other people before the event, especially when riding in a remote part of Spain, which we were, and there aren't any petrol stations or little shops, very few bars and supermarkets, and in some villages all you'd have is a water fountain to top up your bottles. So depending on how much food you plan to carry, you could carry all the food you need in your bags, which is a lot of weight. But if you are relying on food and water when you're out riding, to stop whenever you get the chance. Don't go past a shop or a cafe and think you'll be fine, because there were a few times while I didn't run empty with food and water that I was carrying, I went through a small town and thought there'd be another opportunity later on, and then 5 hours passed by and you haven't seen a single person. And I was definitely close in a few moments of Badlands to running empty. Luckily I didn't run empty and didn't dehydrate, I didn't bonk, but definitely a very cautious tale of when you get a chance to stop, you stop. The other big lesson I learned, and it's a tough lesson for me to learn, is that while you can plan, prepare for every possible eventuality, I was stressed about my legs, about my stomach, the food, the heat, dehydration, and punches. I was very worried about my tires and getting punches in the middle of that ride. But I wasn't expecting, I never thought my neck would give out and be the one thing that it didn't ruin the race, but yeah, it did ruin the race, I guess. It really pushed me into a massive low, a massive spiraling pit of despair and pain and suffering that I hadn't planned for. And that is another lesson I learned, that all the best preparation, all the best planning in the world, and something can come out of nowhere, hit you sideways, and you have to be resilient, mentally tough, some stamina from somewhere to dig yourself out of that hole, to keep yourself going, especially in an unsupported race. You can't just pick up the phone and say, come pick me up. You are pretty much on your own. You find like a taxi, I guess. So you have to be able to keep yourself going. Find your why, your motivation to keep going when you have these unexpected challenges thrown at you that you didn't plan for, and find a way to keep going. And that was tough for me. That was the toughest lesson. I'm pleased with how I responded to that challenge, and I kept going, and I want the race to end so badly, but I had to keep going. The finish line was there, I was there. There's only one way back, to follow the route. So yeah, just expect something crazy to happen to you, and I guess don't stress when it happens. Be calm, go through all the possible solutions and scenarios to figure out a way to get yourself out of that situation, and keep going. But I know loads of people did struggle with mechanicals. Lots of people have mechanicals. They seem to have one mechanical after the other. I know one person who had just a mechanical every day. They seem to have no luck. And that can be really tough to get your head around and accept, I guess, if the mechanical gods keep throwing a spanner in the work. So finishing a race like that isn't a given. It's not easy. So be prepared for the unexpected, I guess, is my lesson, and try and figure out a way through it. And the other lesson I've learned is that recovery from riding my bike for 2.5 days, which is all it was, still my longest bike ride ever, is slow. It's 2.5 weeks ago now, and I'm still tired. My back is slowly recovering. My neck still aches, but I'm doing some physio, trying to strengthen and rehab my neck and my back. But yeah, the recovery has been brutal. I wasn't expecting that at all. I knew the race would be hard. I didn't expect the recovery to be harder than the race and take so long. I've only been on a handful of bike rides since. And yeah, so if you are doing an ultra bikepacking race, make sure to account for the recovery afterwards, and if you can, book a holiday or book some time off work. Yeah, it's like a week for every day I rode a bike almost. So yeah. So my final thoughts on doing my first ever, and hopefully not last ever, ultra bikepacking race is that if you are considering it, which I have been for several years, go for it. Presuming you have a reasonable level of fitness and you're good with your bike out in the middle of nowhere and have an appetite for riding a long way and a tiny bit of suffering, just go for it. For me, the people I met, the friends I made, and the landscape I rode through, and yeah, I had a massive low, but also massive highs, and it's still one of the best things I've ever done in my life, on or off the bike. So just go for it. Just enter a race next season, have that goal to train for. It keeps you on the straight and narrow path in terms of training and preparation when it's months out, and just go for it. Just make sure to go into it with a good plan, good preparation, good bike setup. Do some smaller rides to work up to that bigger ride, and I would say just go for it and enjoy it. And it is fun, not type 2 fun, but fun before and during, maybe a little bit less after when you're suffering and recovering. But definitely leaves you with an amazing experience, amazing memories from a shared adventure. So yeah, Badlands had quite an impact on me, and I wish I'd done it sooner, but I'm glad to have done it. Definitely a massive, massive box ticked. So that's some of my lessons and mistakes from doing my first ever ultra bikepacking race. If you've done your first bikepacking race, or you're maybe way more experienced than me, then feel free to drop a comment down below. And if you want to see a video of my Badlands highs and lows, then watch the video right up here.